Yo, yo, yo. The boys are back. Well, boy. Doing it solo. First one, holding it down while David is on his honeymoon. So, all you get is me today. But we're going to make it happen. We're going to talk Eastern Conference Finals and Western Conference Finals. Eastern Conference Finals wrapped up. Celtics swept the Pacers 4-0. But it's a lot closer than you might think. And here are my thoughts. One, starting with the Pacers. One, probably 5-6 episodes ago or so, David and I, both called out Tyrese Halliburton. He was scoring, 8, 12 points in a few games, and it just was not going to be enough. So we kind of called him out and said, hey, buddy, you got to step up and you have to score. You are the best player on your team. You need to not only try to get 9 to 12 assists per game, but you also have to score 18 to 25 points per game. This whole 8-point, 10-point, 12-point games in the playoffs is just not going to cut it. And before he got injured, I believe he got injured in game 2? Before he got injured, he definitely rose to the challenge. So shout out to Tyrese Halliburton. You definitely picked it up when we said you needed to, and I expect a lot of good things next year. Point number 2 for the Pacers. Andrew Nembhard was an absolute baller in the playoffs. He definitely stepped up. It's kind of wild because he played a point guard in college, was the main playmaker, distributor, facilitator, all of the above in college. He goes second round pick, and really, I don't think until this year he was really anything special. I mean, granted, he's been in the NBA for what? This is his second season, I believe. And so, obviously, playing next to Tyrese Halliburton, you have much less playmaking, facilitating needs, right? A lot of things run through Tyrese Halliburton. However, who is it? You got Benedict Mathurin. He was hurt, which pushed Nembhard into the starting lineup and to play alongside Tyrese Halliburton. And that duo is like, you could literally give it to either of them and know that your playmaking, facilitating, running the offense needs are completely in check because you can give it to either one of them and you feel good about it. What's going to be interesting is having Tyrese Halliburton back, obviously, next season. Benedict Mathurin is healthy. He's back. Nembhard is back. He's healthy. You have those 3 guys who kind of fit into the 2 main guard positions. So it's going to be really interesting what they decide to do, because the way that Andrew Nembhard played in the playoffs this year, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals, and especially once Tyrese Halliburton went out, man, oh man, he was just absolutely going crazy. Let me just read you these stat lines. All right, so game 1, Halliburton is still playing. 12 points, 7 assists. Okay? A fine game, right? He's probably the fourth option in that starting lineup when everybody's healthy. Halliburton, Siakam, Miles Turner, and then you could argue Nembhard is probably the 4th option, right? When everybody's healthy. Okay, so game 2 comes along. Tyrese Halliburton gets hurt. It was either the second or the third quarter. He bumps that 12 points up to 16 points. He goes 16 points, 5 assists. Okay, that's game 2. Game 3 and 4, Tyrese Halliburton is out. He goes 32 points, 9 assists in game 3 in a 3-point loss, which they should have probably won. We'll talk about that in a minute. And game 4, he had 24 points, 10 assists. I mean, that's all you could really ask from him. So Indiana's got a great problem on their hands because they've got 3 really good young guards to kind of fit into 2 spots. So it's going to be interesting how they kind of fit those into who's playing and with who and who's starting and everything come next year. But man, I was very impressed with Andrew Nembhard. He was absolutely incredible. Third point for the Pacers as we watch this Eastern Conference Finals. They play with a ton of pace, right? I mean, you just look at these scores. Game 1, 133 to 128. Game 2, 126 to 110. Game 3, 114 to 111. The first 3 games, both teams scored at least 110 points, which a lot of times come the playoffs, you're looking for more defensive games. Teams probably score. There's more physicality, so on and so forth. In the first 3 games, you have both teams scoring 110 points. That's crazy. So, Indiana, they push the pace. This was actually the series of the top 2 offensive teams in the league this year, Indiana and Boston. Okay. But you have to pose the question. I believe in 3 of the 4 games in this series, Boston won all 4, remember. In 3 of the 4 games, it was very close at the end of the game. Game 1, Boston won in overtime. They were losing at the end of it, and Indiana made some mental mistakes down the stretch. Boston won in overtime that game. Game 2, Boston won handily. We can give them that one. Game 3, Boston won by 3 points. And game 4, Boston won by 3 points. So 3 of the 4 games are very close at the end. Now here's the question. Indiana is playing this crazy pace the whole game, right? As it got towards the end, they didn't really stop playing with this pace. There were a few possessions, I feel like in almost every single game, where it was about a minute and a half left, tied game. They get the rebound, they're still pushing like crazy and take the first shot that they can get. Minute 15, they miss that. Boston comes down, make or miss. They get the ball, they go. Indiana gets it and goes, tries to take a quick shot. It didn't seem like there was any urgency to slow the game down as it got towards the end. So the question is, you play with this pace for so long, for the whole game, and you're going. Is there a time where you have to stop and say, okay, it's a tie game, or we're up by 2 points, or, oh, we're down 2 points. We have to get a great shot. We need to slow the pace down. We cannot just go down and shoot the first decent shot that we can get. That's going to be something that they need to look at, because I think that the pace throughout the game is definitely something that got them to this place, right? New York couldn't keep up. Who did they play in the first series? Milwaukee. They couldn't keep up with the pace, right? Boston could to a certain point, right? The games were close. I don't think anybody expected it to be as close as it was, but there were multiple cases, multiple games where Indiana just could not get a shot to fall, could not get a great wide open shot at the end of the game. Is that Boston's defense stepping up to the challenge at the end of the game? Or is that the frenetic pace that's just coursing through Indiana's veins that is like, oh, we got to take the first decent shot. Oh, we got to take this shot when there's 15 seconds on the clock in a tie game in the last minute and a half. Is that the best shot that we could take? Maybe, maybe not. But I think it definitely poses the question that they're going to have to think about, especially at the end of the game in the playoffs when all of these points matter so much. It's just going to be something that they need to look at. Switching gears to Boston side. One notable thing: Jaylen Brown won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP over Jason Tatum. It's kind of, I would probably put it in a similar category when Iguodala won the NBA Finals MVP over some of the more noteworthy players. Maybe not quite to the level because Jaylen Brown is very good. He was probably one of the players that was the closest to an All NBA team without getting to that level this year. But I think it does maybe put a little bit of an asterisk on Jason Tatum's performance. Everybody has been constantly saying Jason Tatum has to win this championship to kind of prove himself as one of the elite players in the league. The Celtics have to win the championship. Jason Tatum has to win this run here this year to kind of solidify himself. Well, I mean, he didn't get the Eastern Conference Final MVP. Honestly, I would be shocked if he doesn't get the Finals MVP. However, it is something to say where, okay, he didn't get the Eastern Conference MVP. Like, did he really lead his team in that series? You could argue that he was the second fiddle. And so if we're to the point where people are saying that he needs to win this, the Celtics need to win this to solidify himself, is he solidifying himself if he's not getting the MVP? He's playing second fiddle to Jaylen Brown. No knock on Jaylen Brown, but this is Jason Tatum's legacy we're talking about. I mean, if we're not getting these MVP trophies in the playoffs because your team is so good, well, no offense, but I think it's going to be a little while until you win the regular season MVP. So these are the ones that you got to get to keep stacking those trophies in your closet here, to kind of solidify yourself as, hey, yes, okay, everybody like kind of thinks that Tatum is good, but this is what proves to everybody else, yeah, he is that good. So something to look for. I would be shocked if he doesn't get the Finals MVP if they win, but we'll circle back on that once it gets to that time. Second thing is this series finished on Monday, May 27th, Memorial Day. That was the last game, game 4. Okay, so wait, was it Monday? Yeah, it was Monday. What will no, it wasn't. Yeah, it was Monday. What will be something to watch is their last game was May 27th. The first NBA Finals game is June 6th. So a week from Thursday, right? So they'll have from Monday to the next Thursday about 11 days, I think that is. 7, 8, 9, 10 days, 10 or 11 days from their last game. How do they go from this dominant performance that they just swept Indiana, played a few close games, right? You want to keep that momentum. How do you go from Monday winning that Eastern Conference Finals to then having 10 days off before you start the NBA Finals against whoever wins in the Western Conference? That is a lot of time. You have to think that they're going to get these next couple days off, probably until, I don't know, at least Thursday, Friday maybe. But what's the balance between being fresh, staying in the gym, but making sure that that we're ready to go in the finals? So that's something that they're going to have to think about. I'm sure that they've already got a plan, but that's a lot of days, and there isn't really any other time since before the season started that there were 10 days between one of their games and the next game. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. I mean, you kind of expect that first game, they might be a little rusty in that first quarter. So I'm not telling you to make use of that information how you will, but just something to keep in mind. If it were me, I would probably think that the Western Conference team, whoever that is going to come out a little bit stronger at the beginning. I think Boston will figure it out fairly quickly, but something to keep in mind. Moving on to what the potential matchups could look like. If the Celtics are playing the Mavericks, who are currently up 3-1, Game 5 is Thursday night, tonight. Luka and Kyrie will literally have to play the best series that they ever have for the Mavs to have a chance. I truly believe that. I think that the Timberwolves are a better team, but their team has not been playing as well as they could. So the Dallas Mavericks have definitely taken the games from them, which credit to them. They have done that. But if the Mavs are playing the Celtics, Luka and Kyrie shoulder so much of the scoring load, they will have to play an incredible series for the Mavericks to have a chance. I think that the Celtics are far and away a much more complete team. And I think the other aspect that you can kind of look at is one of the biggest struggles for Minnesota as they're playing Dallas is Luka has been able to guard Jaden McDaniels for the most part. And Jaden can make shots if he's getting the ball passed to him in decent spots to shoot. However, he's not a big offensive playmaker. And so Dallas has been able to sit Luka on him down in the corner, have him just kind of hang out in the gaps, hang out in help side defense, not have to exert a ton of energy on the defensive end. The only problem is if they then win this series and move on to playing Boston, there really is none of that. You have Drew Holiday, who is a very smart player and can find spots, is much more integrated into the offensive flow. You have Derek White, you have Jason Tatum, you have Jaylen Brown. Who is Luka going to guard out of those four? Honestly, I would probably say that he'd probably guard Drew Holiday because he's the least involved in the offensive motion of the flow. But even so, Boston can easily put him in a lot of different actions. Drew Holiday, that being, and he's such a good playmaker that he doesn't have to do it all that often because they have so many other great options. But this is the benefit of having him, is he can do anything that is asked of him. And so there really isn't anybody that Luka can guard that's just going to sit in the corner and allow him to rest on the defensive end. I think that's going to hurt them mightily in that series. So on the flip side, looking at the offensive end, Luke and Kyrie, they have to score. They don't have the ability to kind of have each of the 4 or 5 guys that are playing on the court at any given time equally be able to score the basketball. Derek Jones Jr., he's just going to catch and shoot threes or finish lobs at the basket. Same thing with whichever center is playing. PJ Washington has been shooting terribly. He's not that good of a creator or a shot creator. So it really falls onto Kyrie and Luka making everything happen on the offensive end. It's worked out for them in this series, but we'll see. Moving on to the Wolves. I think this would be a much better series. I think everybody was saying that before the Western Conference Finals. It didn't go their way up to this point, but it's still a series. It's still happening. But I think the biggest thing is perimeter defensive wise, the Wolves have multiple matchups that they can turn to kind of slow the Celtics down. They have multiple great perimeter defenders. They have guys that are willing to step up to the defensive challenge, and that's truly what you need when you're playing a team with 4 to 5 guys who can all score, who can all play in multiple positions. They can play 5 out. They can play with guys getting into the post. They can play so many different offensive ways that you really need a solid defensive team, guys that can do multiple things, uh, to slow them down. You're never going to stop them, but you need to slow them down to a point where you can make enough shots on your offensive end to keep it close, to get a little bit of a lead, and then make the plays down the stretch. So Porzingis should be back for the Celtics. I think that's going to be helpful, um, regardless of who they play. There's a few more notable storylines if the Mavericks get there with Kyrie, um, and Porzingis playing teams that they've played in the past, but obviously biased. I would hope that the Wolves can somehow pull out a miracle finish here and make it happen. With that being said, we're going to switch over to the Western Conference now. So you have Dallas up 3-1, Game 5 Thursday night in Minnesota. To kind of recap the series to this point, one, I think shot making has been incredible from the Dallas Mavericks perspective. I mean, there really has only been one game to this point, Game 4, where Luka and Kyrie did not play well. Kyrie was slow in Game 3 and did not start well, but he definitely played well in the second half, and was able to get up to, I think, low 20s in points. But there really has only been one game where Kyrie and Luka did not play that well, and that was Game 4, the game that the Wolves won. So really the shot making just in general, but then also down the stretch, fourth quarter, the second half of the fourth quarter, it really has been incredible. I mean, it's almost to the point where every single time one of those two guys shoots the ball, I almost think that it's just going to go in because they've literally made every single shot, it seems. So credit to them. I mean, they've definitely risen to the challenge. But you got to get to 4 games, so we'll see. I mean, let's be honest, it could end in 4-1. I'm hoping that it's not. I'm keeping hope that the Wolves can somehow figure this out, but the shot making has been crazy, specifically from Kyrie and Luka. One thing that I feel like I've seen through this series is they're trying to play so many defensive coverages on the ball screen offense of Dallas, specifically when Luka is coming off of that it's almost like they're confusing themselves, because I mean, Mike said it at the beginning of the series, in Game 1 or 2, they're throwing so many different coverages and they just aren't doing what they're supposed to do. They're playing this coverage when they're supposed to play that coverage, and so I think they're trying to throw so much at Luka to try and confuse him that they're almost confusing themselves. I do not think that we should be playing drop coverage because it allows Luka to just basically figure out exactly where he wants to go. Gafford's been doing a great job running, what is it called, the Gortat screen, where you set the ball screen and then you roll to the basket and basically run through your defender, clearing a lane for the ball handler to get to the basket or to get to a shot making option. He's been doing a great job at that, but I don't think that the drop coverage is going to be our best play. We have to figure out what the defensive option or a couple options that is going to work best, and we have to stick with those. We cannot be having any more miscues on the defensive end, specifically on the ball screen coverages, if the Wolves are going to come back and win this series. I think Game 4 showed it all, and how important Cat is to the success of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I have a hard time balancing. I know that Naz Reid is a big fan favorite, if you will, and I think he's a great player. I think the hard part is everybody is just constantly screaming for Nas Reed. We should play Nas more. We got to keep Cat out of the game. We got to keep Cat out of the game. We need more Nas. He's so good. He's been playing well. Yes, he has been playing well. However, there's a reason that Karl Anthony Towns has been an all-star and Nas Reed has not. He's younger. He isn't as experienced. He doesn't quite have the offensive versatility that Karl Anthony Towns has, or the past proven track record of playing at a very high level. Yes, Nas has had spurts, but for the Minnesota Timberwolves to be successful, it has to be Karl Anthony Towns. It has to be Anthony Edwards. It cannot be Nas Reed scoring 15, 16 points. That is what Cat should be doing every single night, plus that, right? Plus more. And so it has to be coming into game 5, coming into game 6, hopefully game 7. Cat has to be dominating. There's really nobody on the Mavericks that can guard him well. PJ Washington's too small. He's been kind of bodying him a little bit. So Cat has to dominate on the offensive end. What's going to help that is he has to. I know this is me hoping and just grasping for anything, but the amount of stupid fouls that Karl Anthony Towns takes, regardless of where he is on the court, whether it's half court, whether it's on the offensive rebounds, whether it's just doing something stupid on the defensive end, there are so many times that he just takes a stupid foul, and once you get one stupid foul, chances are, 2 minutes later, an actual foul, which wouldn't be the end of the world, happens, and now, instead of having one foul, you have 2 fouls, and then if you stay in the game, then Dallas is smart enough to be like, okay, well, he has 2 fouls. He's very important to the offensive success and the team success of the Timberwolves. Okay, we're going to try and get number 3 on him, and then he has to sit the rest of the first half. It just doesn't make any sense. You cannot be giving up those stupid fouls somewhere on the court that we're going to need as the game progresses. If you have one foul as the first half is coming to a close, this is amazing because now you can literally play however you want, hopefully avoiding these stupid fouls. But if there's a foul that is called on you, it's not the end of the world because now you only have 2 fouls. You have a lot of room to work with, but there are so many stupid fouls that he just gets in situations where he gets a stupid one and then he gets a real one, and now it's like, okay, now he has to change how he plays the game, which if we're going to have any chance of coming back, he has to be able to dominate and play exactly how he wants to, exactly how we need him to, without any restrictions because of the fouls. How I think one of the ways that we can avoid some of these stupid fouls, I think that we need to trap the ball on the ball screen, specifically when Luka is coming off of the ball screen. Honestly, less of when Kyrie is coming off the ball screen, because I think that if we can trap Luka, a lot of times it's either going to be Rudy's defender or Cat's defender. When they're up, if we get the ball out of Luka's hands, then there are less times that Cat might get a stupid one when Luka and Kyrie are the ones coming off of that ball screen, playmaking, getting the ball into the gaps, finding guys off of the drive, putting up the floaters in the mid paint. I think if we can trap the ball specifically out of Luka's hands and make him give it up, then the better off we're going to be. My strategy that I think that we need to try is, up to this point, it seems like we're trying to do so many things just to kind of slow them down. I wouldn't mind seeing a game where we make one of them beat us. Specifically Kyrie, I think he has less of an ability to score 60, 65 points or 40 points plus playmake and have 6, 7, 8 assists. Could he do it? Yes, definitely. He's a great player. But I think that if we just put a bunch of attention on Luka and say, hey, this guy is not going to beat us. He is going to get rid of the ball. We're not going to let him score. We're not going to let him be the main playmaker for the Dallas Mavericks in game 5, we'll say. We're going to make Kyrie do all of this. We're going to make him playmake. We're going to make him shoot a bunch of shots. I think that if he scores 40 or 45 points, but takes 30 to 35 shots because he's the only one that's getting the ball, and we can hold Luka to 15, tall task. I will say that, tall task. But if we are only focused on letting Kyrie be the main playmaker and we try to take Luka out of it, then I think that could be a strategy that works. The last thing I'll say is, holy moly, it has been put under a microscope, which I think is amazing, because Luka literally complains every single possession. I'm not the first person to say it. I don't think I'm going to be the last, but wow, it has been mind-boggling and very eye-opening to watch a player literally complain every single possession. Was it a foul on him? He's asking for more fouls. Was the foul not called? He's screaming at the officials. Was there a foul on somebody else? He's going directly over to the refs to talk about either that play or something else that he is asking for. Was it a foul on him? He's complaining that it wasn't a foul. Literally every single possession. If you're watching the game on TV, game 5, just watch him after every single possession. Probably 85 to 90% of the time, after a call is made, he's going over to talk to the official, or at the very least making a face and kind of being like, what the heck, that wasn't a foul, or what are you talking about? It's unreal, and that he's been given such a long leash with his mannerisms on the court. It's very hard to watch because I hate that. I hate seeing it. And it's literally constant through the whole game. So, Luka Doncic, if you're watching this, you need to clean it up. It's very hard to watch. I don't think anybody likes it. I'm really happy that I'm not a Dallas Mavericks fan, because that would almost force me to somewhat enjoy it. But every single possession, foul baiting, asking for fouls, complaining, just like making all the facial expressions to ask and kind of like yell for a foul. Way too much. Can't stand it. It's really brutal. But in my opinion, I kind of hope we get 3 more games of it, because that would mean that the Wolves get it to game 7. And as we know, anything can happen in game 7. So that's all, folks. We're going to sign off there. Here's to hoping that the Wolves can make it happen, get it to game 7. Hopefully we're coming at you next week with talks of the Timberwolves and Celtics in the NBA Finals. We're still keeping out hope, but we'll have to see what happens. If it's not the Timberwolves, we'll still be here giving you all of the tea for the NBA Finals. But here's to hoping. We'll see you guys next time.